Hello.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 2023 Hack Summit. We're joined here by Marek Olszewski, who's the co-founder of Celo. And Marek, it's really a privilege to have you here today. You're going to be giving a presentation, plus we're going to do a little fireside chat after the presentation. But before we start with the presentation, Marek, I would love for you to just tell the audience a little about yourself and your background. That way they have the chance to get to know you before we do the presentation.
Yeah, sounds good. So I have a computer science background, studied first at the University of Toronto and then went to MIT for my PhD. And out of MIT, I started a machine learning company back in 2011 that did well. It got acquired a few years later. And it was around that time that I first got introduced to crypto. Brian Armstrong actually sent me some Bitcoin in 2013 at a music festival, which was a fun way to get introduced to crypto. And, not surprisingly, I've been hooked ever since.
Awesome. Well, Marek, we can't wait to learn from you. Feel free to take it away.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah. Well, it's really great to be here. It's really great chatting with all of you. Yeah, I have something that I thought might be interesting for folks. Just around what we're doing in the Celo ecosystem to make it easier for builders to just build really, really easy to use applications that can kind of break through into kind of the normie audience territory. And yeah, if you like this talk, feel free, certainly to ask questions afterwards, but also on Twitter, you can find me at Marek_. And I wanted to start with a question. I was kind of curious, for folks in the audience, how many of you have normie friends that are kind of using Web3 on a regular basis, like maybe using it for, I don't know, NFTs, payments, playing a game. I'm curious if anyone is like sees their normie friends actually getting value out of Web3 today. Don't be shy. Feel free to chat. Post something in the chat. But judging by the lack of kind of posts coming in, I think it's not surprising. I would say that we're just not quite there yet right now.
Yeah, and Marek, by the way, we actually asked this question on in the morning yesterday, and we actually have some data for you. So turns out that about a third of the audience of the developers out there have never done any Web3 programming before, and about 2/3 of them have some experience. And the most common characteristic of our audience is that they're relatively beginner in Web3, but there is a minority in the audience that's intermediate and advanced as well, which is actually, by the way, a big accomplishment since we first held this event 5 years ago. Back then, nobody had any experience with Web3, so I think it's really picking up.
It's huge. Yeah, those are some really great stats. And yeah, definitely very encouraged that we're seeing a lot more builders in the ecosystem that are getting that experience. And certainly we're seeing a lot of, obviously non-Web3 builders also just getting excited and looking to learn. This question, I guess, was in particular to just users, folks actually using what us builders are building. And, whenever I ask this question, sometimes people have some friends that are doing stuff with games or maybe NFTs, but generally there's not that many normies, specifically normies, non-crypto savvy people who are really getting that much out of Web3 today. Maybe beyond like hodling a little bit on a centralized exchange. And that makes Vitalik certainly shown here in the form of a cat emoji, because why not? That makes him sad, right? That makes me sad because we're building for this future, right? Like we want a future where everyone in the world is just so excited by what we're making, and they just can't wait, and they're just storming through the doors of Web3. And the reality is that's not where we are just yet. This is closer to it. There's just a few of us, folks in the audience, I'm sure, who are savvy enough to, be participating in various Web3 projects, and we get to have all the fun, right? Like this is us having all of the fun, and a lot of people are being left out. And so, for this talk, I really wanted to cover why I think this is the case, and then what we're doing within the Celo ecosystem to help address that. But before I get into this, I just thought it might make sense to just offer a tiny bit of background about Celo. For those of you who haven't heard of us or might be new to us, and if you have heard of Celo already, don't worry, this will be really quick. And so we'll get back to answering that like fun and important question. And so yes, if you're new to Celo, I would say there's three things that are pretty exciting about Celo. Number one, we're EVM compatible proof of stake chain. So we're firmly in the Ethereum ecosystem. We're big believers of the Ethereum ecosystem. I would say we've been in the ecosystem since 2017. And fun fact, when Celo launched 3 years ago, it was the first kind of major proof of stake EVM compatible chain, layer one certainly out there. And so we and then I would say it's a really elegant proof of stake consensus protocol that we created that has some really nice niceties, including a zk snark based client, which we'll talk a little bit about. But the other thing that it has that's pretty neat is full on-chain governance. And again, 3 years ago, right around the time that the network launched, the community had its first governance vote. And one of the first things that we voted on was to make Celo a carbon neutral. And in actuality, it ended up being a carbon negative blockchain. We ended up being the first chain to programmatically, using block rewards, offset the emissions, CO2 emissions that the chain is contributing to. And since then, a lot of chains have followed suit, and that's been, I think, really, really exciting. But the other thing that's been really cool to see is a lot of refi, regenerative finance protocols have come to Celo and made Celo their home. And so people frequently kind of think of us as kind of the home of refi. The other focus, I would say, that we have is one around mobile. I mentioned the zk snark based client that we have. And there's been just a lot of applications that have been built for Celo targeting kind of this mobile use case. We also have this really nice thing called Social Connect, which is a identity system that lets you, in a privacy preserving manner, map your phone number to your wallet address. And this works across multiple wallets in the ecosystem. And so it lets people send value to phone numbers instead of public key derived addresses. And so there's a lot of things that we're doing on mobile, and certainly a lot of dApps that build on Celo see that a lot of their users are in fact on mobile. And then the final thing that's pretty neat is that you can pay for gas with tokens on Celo. This is a big topic right now with account abstraction. Since the network launched 3 years ago, this has been possible natively within Celo. You can pay for gas today with 3 stablecoins. Excuse me, 3 stablecoins. In addition to Celo itself, the native asset, there's a stablecoin pegged to the dollar, to the euro, and then also to the Brazilian real. And so that's really nice. If you've ever been in a situation where you received some USDC and you couldn't send it on, this is really a nice way of mitigating kind of that very annoying kind of user experience. And I think probably the most important thing, maybe the most exciting thing for folks here, is that things are growing in the ecosystem. Last month, which just ended yesterday, we had a really amazing month. We broke our kind of active monthly addresses record by 50%, which is really cool. And so we're kind of back to kind of down market levels of usage, which is really an amazing sign. Uniswap and Curve both launched on Celo last year, and generally TVL keeps growing. I think we have more TVL than Near, more TVL than Elgrand, and then also Aptos. And then finally, there's a Chainlink governance proposal that's currently in flight that looks likely to pass which will bring Chainlink to Celo as well shortly. So lots of really cool and exciting things happening in the Celo ecosystem. So definitely check it out if you're new to it. Okay, so coming back to this question, why are our friends, our normie friends, not using, Web3? Why is it? In the past, we've heard a lot from folks saying, well, we can't build for the everyday consumer because that would be a lot of usage and our chains just aren't scalable enough. But, in today's era, we have both vertical scalability, we have horizontal scalability. Like, I think it's pretty difficult to argue now that we don't have enough scalability to meet demand. Certainly Celo, it has a really nice, as I mentioned, proof of stake consensus protocol that's very scalable. And so, we have scalable chains. And so this can't be the reason. In the past, people also used to say, well, we don't have stable coins. You can't build really great consumer experiences with volatile assets. It's just too confusing. They'll never get it. But we have stable coins, I guess, some definition of stable coins. And but certainly, I think from an end consumer perspective, they've probably kind of checked all the boxes for what folks need. And so it can't be that we don't have stable coins. Others have said, well, public key derived addresses, they're intimidating. If you get one digit wrong, you lose your money if you're sending it somewhere. And that's not going to work with consumers and normies. But we have identity systems, right? We have ENS now on Celo. We have Social Connect. This can't be the reason anymore that folks can't build for the general audience. We also were told wallets are not easy enough to use for people. I don't think that that's the case anymore, right? Like we have, sure, browser-based extension wallets are pretty intimidating, but we have all these amazing mobile wallets now. With Wallet Connect, you can connect to your dApp super easily. We have really great wallets. So it can't be that either. This is actually a good time for me to plug Valora, which is one of the companies that I work for. It's a really easy to use mobile wallet that really leverages all of those amazing features that I just talked about that Celo supports. So if you're at all interested in checking it out, seeing what it looks like to send, value to phone numbers, to people in your contact list, paying for gas with stable coins, all of that, definitely please check out Valora. And yeah, so if it's not any of these reasons, why is it then? Why don't we have all of our friends using Web3 today? And my hypothesis is that we just don't have, it's just not easy enough to cash in and out. It's just a big pain in the butt, right? If you're cashing in and out through an exchange and then sending your funds over to a self-custodial wallet, that's something that, folks in the room can probably do, but it's unlikely that your general normie will have the attention span or interest in going through all those hoops. Increasingly now, there are companies that are dedicating to just providing on and off ramping experiences. Frequently, these are web-based, and you can kind of embed them in a wallet. And I would argue that even that is not probably easy enough for normies. Typically, the branding is different. Sometimes you actually open the experience in your web browser, and it's not within the mobile app itself. And sometimes there's extra steps, creating accounts, all of this. It's pretty, I would say, hard for folks to get into that. And so I think we need to do better. And so how do we do better? I hypothesize, and broadly in the Celo ecosystem, we hypothesize that we need to get to a world where every wallet out there has a native on and off ramping experience built into the wallet that works in every country around the world. If I were to wave a magic wand, this is what I think we need. And if we had this, then I think all of your normie friends would be able to get onboarded and off to the races in crypto really, really easily. And what would also be cool is would actually live in a world where you can, send money to anyone in the world, which, arguably we can do today with public blockchains. But what isn't possible today is those folks will then be able to immediately use those funds in their day-to-day lives. If they need to use the funds as fiat because they're interacting with a business that doesn't support crypto yet, they'll be able to cash out trivially and be able to use those funds. And so we could actually really, in a pretty dramatic way, change the way that people send value around the world. This would be kind of our WhatsApp moment, when WhatsApp suddenly made sending text messages free and easy to anyone in the world. So then the question is, how do we get there? Well, doesn't require that much rocket science, right? We just have to integrate a shit ton of on and off ramps into dApps and into wallets. And certainly in Valora, we've been doing that. We've been integrating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and more on and off ramps. We keep adding new ones that pop up and adding them to the application because we're trying to get to that kind of global coverage where it's just super easy for everyone to on and off ramp. And we're not the only ones, right? Like other wallets are doing this too. They're all integrating with all the on and off ramps. And if you think about it, this will continue for quite a while because if we want to get to global coverage, we're probably going to need to integrate hundreds of on and off ramps. It's unlikely that a small number of companies will be able to provide coverage in every market in the world because you need money transmission licenses, you need local banking relations, you need integrations with local payment processors, things that are easier to do on a country by country level. And so chances are there's going to be a crap ton of companies out there that are going to be providing this service. But that's fine because crypto is all about like unifying and getting a crap ton of companies all rowing in the same direction. So that works really nicely. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to integrate all those on and off ramps. And I don't know about you, but when I talk to developers about doing a lot of kind of fairly boring integration work that they then have to maintain for quite a while, that's to them typically their worst nightmare, right? And devs don't like nightmare. So how do we solve this problem? Well, I think the answer is pretty obvious when you look at this kind of diagram. We have to move away from this kind of many-to-many like integration nightmare. And the solution is to move to a hub and spoke model where you have something really cool sitting in the middle, serving as this hub. And that's what we've been working on. And so to solve this issue, we've been working really hard on a public good that we're calling Fiat Connect. And you can think of Fiat Connect as effectively the hub in this hub and spoke model that helps wallets connect with on and off ramp companies. Another way to think about it is, comparing it to Wallet Connect. Wallet Connect, connects wallets to dApps and vice versa. And so Fiat Connect is basically connecting wallets with on and off ramps using a standardized API that's fully open source that effectively, once you've integrated it once, you should be able to add new on and off ramps simply by kind of adding a new line to some configuration file. You shouldn't have to actually do any more work than that. And one really cool thing about Fiat Connect is that it's a backend API service. So apps and wallets that want to use it, they have full control over the UX. So they can make it look truly native to their applications, make it look like you're basically cashing in and out of your a centralized application, even if you're doing so with a self-custodial, fully decentralized wallet or DApp. Now, since on and off ramping is highly regulated, Fiat Connect has full compliance support, full KYC support, and it even enables reusable KYC. So if you're at all interested in checking this out, if you think that this could be useful for you, I highly recommend going to fiatconnect.org. And this might feel like a good place to kind of end this conversation, but there is only one problem, and that's if you're adding a new standard to a situation that's potentially complicated and there's already a lot of different APIs out there, you're not always making the problem easier. Sometimes you're just making things more complicated by introducing a new thing that people have to worry about. And so to address this, we've been working really hard thinking about how to create kind of a shelling point around this Fiat Connect Open API standard. And one way we're doing that in the Celo ecosystem is through this Connect the World competition, which is a public goods funding mechanism for effectively funding support for this standard. It was launched last year. It's a $20 million incentive program that the Celo Foundation is leading. And the goal is to incentivize the adoption of Fiat Connect by lots and lots of on and off ramp providers around the world. And the good news is it's working. Fiat Connect is now being adopted, and it's even live as of a few weeks ago. Valora, that wallet that I mentioned earlier, a few weeks ago announced that they launched support in Nigeria, Kenya, and the Philippines. Since then, India, Uganda, and Ghana was also added to the list. And so we're slowly making progress towards lighting up this whole map and making it all green. And while we are still in the early innings, there is a lot of work happening right now to turn this map into something that will look like this fairly soon. So get excited. And one thing that I really like to do is hear from actual real users who are using these things and hear what they think. And so we put together some quotes that you guys might appreciate. One quote from Philip is that he really appreciates that he can cash out directly into mobile money in Ghana. Certainly a nice experience to be able to go straight to mobile money. Rachel from Kenya said that she's really stoked that she doesn't have to go through a P2P exchange anymore, and she can just transfer funds from her wallet directly into her bank account. And then finally, and this one's really good, Emmanuel had this quote. And if you think about it, on and off ramping is not rocket science. It should just work. Doesn't need to be special. All it has to do is exist and be reliable. And if you can pull that off, then what you've created is something that, as Emmanuel says, is very, very okay. And I think that really hits the nail on the head. Again, if you do it well, it just kind of blends into the background and folks don't have to think about it, and it just works. We also heard from an engineer who said that when they added Ghana, all they had to do was add one line to a configuration file. So that was really, really exciting. Really kind of proved this thesis around just making it easier to onboard new on and off ramps. And so that was really cool. So yeah, so that's Fiat Connect. And just to finish off with a few kind of thoughts, one of the really nice things about enabling native on and off ramping experiences directly in self-custodial wallets is that you kind of create this experience that looks and feels like a centralized experience, right? Like you can, especially for wallets that support paying for gas with stablecoins, you can effectively let people cash in from fiat into a stablecoin that's self-custodied and make that a step during onboarding that looks and feels like just funding your account in a centralized offering like Coinbase. And importantly, you can do it in a way that is fully self-custodial, that allows people to move away from centralized offerings, which, as we've seen in the last year, can carry real risk for end users. And so this is really neat. It really enables super easy self-custody. And again, if you can pay for gas with tokens, then as more stable coins pop up, one for each currency in the world, people will be able to just cash into their local stable coin and then be able to access Web3 and just be off to the races. Buy an NFT, use a DEX, do anything that they want super, super easily. So if you're a builder and you're building a dApp or an app, could be a web app, could be mobile, and you want to have lots of users going and using your offering, then I think the one takeaway that I'd like you to walk away with is that Fiat Connect can be a really nice tool in your toolbox for just making that even easier for your users to just reduce all that friction and to get them onboarded even easier. And so hopefully that will help us get to the future that we want. I'm pretty confident it will. So super excited about that. And yeah, it's just been a real pleasure sharing this with you. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Marek. I really appreciate what you've presented here today because it's very practical and it really has a lot of empathy for the UI UX challenges that come with crypto. And I think that's an overlooked area of crypto that I think the first wave of Web3 startups kind of ignored, because a lot of them were computer scientists without necessarily a lot of practical experience working with actual end users. And I think what's elegant about your solution is it's basically kind of like the FedEx algorithm applied to payments, basically. And it's very similar to like what Deal is doing in Web2, which is now a multi-billion-dollar company where they can handle payments internationally, no matter what currency you're using. And so it's a proven model, and that you're now applying to a protocol, which I think is brilliant. So I am a fan of what you presented here today, and I think it's going to solve a lot of problems. So we're just about out of time, unfortunately, so we can't take audience questions here since we're about to go to our cross-chain bridge panel. But Marek, I think what you presented here is phenomenal. And if the audience wants to get involved and maybe help to build some connectors for various fiat currencies, how can they get involved with your project, Marek?
Yeah, great question. Well, first of all, definitely come join the Celo Discord and follow the Celo Twitter handle. It's just Celo.org on Twitter. A lot of this work is happening in the broader Celo ecosystem, so definitely start there. And then if you're excited about Fiat Connect specifically, then definitely check out fiatconnect.org. And then also follow Fiat Connect on Twitter. This is still kind of an early public good that a lot of folks are contributing to, so it's a good time to contribute to it if you're interested. And it's definitely a good time to also follow it along and start integrating it into your own products if you feel like getting folks to cash in really easily into your applications is important for you. So yeah, that's where I would look.
Thank you, Marek. It was a pleasure having you today, and thank you for helping make a difference for the charities. If you enjoyed what you learned, please consider donating at hacksummit.org, and we'll be right back with a cross